is marketing important? With AI or without AI? Is marketing important? Way more now than ever, because now that AI is here, there's so many organizations, so many companies that would usually not have put marketing at the top of their list. But now they're seeing the opportunities with AI. And so they're like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. So they're beginning to build their arsenal of marketing equipment, their go-to-market, their storytelling, their videos. They're seeing opportunities now. So why would you be a player in that field and want to take a step back? If there's any time at all that you need to challenge yourself, it's now.
One of the things that is important is to step back and say, what is our strategy, and find some way of writing that says this is what the business wants to achieve. An advisor could write that themselves. They could get a consultant to write it, or they could ask an agency to do it, or even a freelancer. That's really the thought process of saying, what do we want? What do we need the business to achieve, and where marketing fits into that? A small business with only maybe one advisor, several advisors, less than 10 people, can compete with big businesses that have full marketing departments.
Hey, I'm Adebola with over 2 decades in marketing, and I love the storytelling part of marketing.
And hi, I'm Tom. I've been in marketing for 25 years, and I love performance marketing, and particularly digital marketing. It's the greatest thing in the world.
And we are your team, breaking down for you tips on how to actually make marketing practical and effective.
And in every session, we'll have some inside tips, some great advice, and even some guests joining us. So we look forward to speaking to you, seeing you, and talking everything marketing. Hi, Adebola. Well, the problem we're looking at today is this staggering new stat that's come out that says financial advisors across the UK are facing a real challenge with their marketing budgets and being able to do marketing. So the figure, in fact, is 44% of financial advisors in the UK say that that's an issue for them, which then goes on to, hinder their ability to get out to new clients and generate new business. What do you think about that?
That's interesting, because I would have thought that financial advisors, like I would see them living in this really lovely castle, everybody coming in with some nice waiters here and there. Marketing becomes something that's so easy for them. But I can also see why that could be a challenge, because what about time? Would they have time? Because they're looking at compliance, they're looking at their clients, they're looking at so many things. Would marketing become something that they overlook? Would you think that time might be an issue there? I don't know. You're in that space, so you can tell.
It would be lovely to think that that's who all financial advisors are, really wealthy, really successful. And many of them are, I'm sure. But, I think fundamentally what they're trying to do is do a great job for their clients. And that's what they're experts in. So they're really good at delivering brilliant financial advice. But what they might not be good at is working out how to do marketing. And as you say, they might not have much time available to do that. And we do know in the outside world, if you look at our daily lives, we get so many messages and emails from people trying to sell us marketing services, don't we? My inbox is so crowded with lots of messages I don't have time to look at from suppliers who may be good, they may be bad. And I think the difficulty that an advisor has, a financial advisor, is they might not be expert in marketing. So how do they sift through those? Have you got any tips for how a financial advisor should look at an agency or a freelancer and determine whether they're good and fit for purpose?
As in looking at the agency as a whole, right?
Yes.
It's a very, it's an interesting one, because everybody comes with their own baggage. And most times I've found as well within the space that when folks go with agencies, they go because they've knocked a particular item out of the park, and they forget that there's so much more than one item when it comes to working with an agency. So it's just very important to make sure that whatever agency you're going with, they are able to connect with your customers, not so much with you. I don't know how to say that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well,
But you need to go in there and say, this is my customer. This is what we want to say to them. How would you say it? And then allow them to bring the storytelling to you or bring the cues to you. And then you're able to see, if I was the customer, if I was my customer, this is how I would consume this information. That would make a lot of sense to me. But let's stop going into those rooms thinking, how would I consume the information, and start switching those seats. I think that might go a very long way in selecting, better agencies than we currently do.
yeah, I think you touched on a lot of good points in there. One of the ones I wanted to mention and pull out is quite often the rapport someone builds with an agency can steer their choice, rather than looking at the agency's abilities to reach their target customer. So sometimes, in the past, I've seen a lot of businesses get that choice wrong, stay with that agency for a period of time, and then have to start from the beginning again. I think where I used agencies in my role as a CMO across a number of years is, you know, agencies will differ in their fit for a business, and different sizes work for different businesses.
Yeah.
So if you take the biggest marketing agency out there, huge agency with lots of staff, quite expensive, that's probably not the right fit for a financial advisor with a small firm based in, a region within this country. But if they can find someone who really wants to invest time in working with them and growing them, that could be an agency with one or two people. So I think getting the agency choice right and finding someone who understands their customers and also then has the expertise in those channels is something that can be overlooked because personality rapport comes into it,
Yeah.
in the choice of agency. And equally, we see so many. I mean, you're an AI
Yeah.
expert far more than I am. I'm just a dabbler in AI. But I mean, lots and lots of times I get into my email inbox and LinkedIn inbox outreach from, sort of AI generated message sequences.
Yeah.
And they'll say things like, are you looking for new leads? We've got the solution. We can supercharge your marketing. And they don't say what a lead is. They don't say what they're going to do, but they're quite compelling
Yeah.
in what they say. So how does a financial advisor work out whether to respond to one of those or not respond to one of them?
And I like the fact that you also picked on AI, right? And when it comes to this old age, and it's great because financial advice firms that are able to then start to embrace AI might also get a chance at, speeding up that whole enablement thing for themselves on how to start to use marketing in a better way to tell their own story. Who knows your story more than you? You know exactly what you're communicating, what you're selling to your customers, and you know exactly how it's solving great problems for other customers like them. Customers like to see themselves in their own shoes. Like, you've done this for so many customers. Can you put me in the shoe of one of them? So I'll see whether that's the shoe that fits me. So when we start to actually look at things like this and say, how can I use an opportunity with AI, and also looking at how to actually use that as my storytelling, to start to also just see, how do I tease out my stories, my use cases? We had a particular meeting with this customer, and they said they had seen us on our LinkedIn is why they came to us. But this was a particular post that they saw that got them really talking to us. It starts to give you an idea of exactly how your customers like to be spoken to. Your clients like you to speak to them. But if you're not paying attention to little things like that, if you're not measuring them, if you're not taking cognizance of the fact that this is how I communicated and it rang a bell, then you're missing out on real data. And to answer you, Tom, about, how do you then look at all this, like this large inflow, and select who exactly to respond to? It's a very good one, because you have to also be careful, because you can't waste your time on those that are not going to give you anything. So what I normally would do is I won't respond mostly, but when I do, because it's compelling, I say, tell me someone you've done this for, and show me how. It takes me back to the use case. I want to see me in someone you've done this for, and that helps you show me your storytelling.
Yeah, I mean that's a great tip. I think one of the things you mentioned in the first part of that answer about authenticity, it's
Yeah.
so important, isn't it? And I think when we think about something like ChatGPT, many people would think, okay, that's taking the personality out of the content that's generated. But actually, one of the things that really fascinates me is the way we can very simply train AI and feed the right things into it so that it speaks with a voice that's very similar to ours and it understands our tone of voice, how we want to present things. Maybe it's looked at some content we've already done. And so for content generation, it gives us at the very least a draft we can look at and change and edit. And I think when we're talking about resource time for financial advisors, not many of the firms have marketing departments, even maybe a marketing person. So these things, if a financial advisor has decided or wants to try doing their marketing themselves for a little while, content generation through ChatGPT could be something that's part of that playbook, if they've decided not to bring in external help, which, I would judge is going to take them away from some of their time that they're going to spend with clients. So it may not be the best choice. But if they don't want to invest any money or they think they're the best person to do their own marketing, it's finding the right combination of things, isn't it? As you say, finding, is there a freelancer out there who can help? Is there an agency who can get me started or build my website? And thereafter, how self-sufficient do I want to be? So this is where I think AI can be seen as a challenge and an opportunity, and it's getting, the ability or someone to help steer and navigate us through what it can offer.
You answered the question already, Tom, as well, because what you're saying is marketing important?
Mm.
With AI or without AI? Is marketing important in this?
Yes.
Yes. So way more now than ever, because now that AI is here, there's so many organizations, so many companies that would usually not have put marketing at the top of their list. But now they're seeing the opportunities with AI. And so they're like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. So they're beginning to build their arsenal of marketing equipment, their go-to-market, their storytelling, their videos. They're seeing opportunities now. So why would you be a player in that field and want to take a step back? If
Yes.
there's any time at all that you need to challenge yourself, it's now, because others are not sleeping and you don't want to be the last one through the door because your customers are already gone.
Yes.
So I would challenge them. Go for it. Like, start with one channel, start with one type of content, and use that as your opportunity to test things out and say, do we then see the opportunities here? Can I do more? Can I do more email marketing? Or can I do just one post a week on LinkedIn? Can I write one thought leadership article? Can I write one white paper on what I'm doing? Can I write one use case? Can I do a video about how a financial advisor goes to clients and comes back happy? Whatever it is, pick a subject, pick a channel, and own it and see what great things that brings back for you. Then make a decision from there, what more you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think we've got some good examples of advisors doing that and embracing that. I think the thing that you reminded me of there was, when digital marketing was quite new, if we reverse back, 20 years or so, when I was starting out, the opportunity then was it really leveled the playing field because digital was so easy to adopt, get into, try. We had Google search, which again did a sort of quality check on who is relevant for this search. And the beauty of some of the digital ad channels was that you could start with a very small budget, see what worked and scaled, which is still true today. And I think that level playing field I talk about is where a small business with only maybe one advisor, several advisors, less than 10 people can compete with big businesses that have full marketing departments. The only thing that's missing is trying it, getting started, experimenting, and that's exactly the same with AI, as you said. So it's almost like the re-advent of something new. In the old days, it was digital marketing, which is still, massively important. Now it's how do we use AI in the mix of things we're doing, and one of the things that the survey I mentioned at the start, which was by Unbiased, brought out in this survey of financial advisors was that
Staggering, 44%. That's a
yes,
lot.
it is, and it's almost a paradox to what you touched on, where you would think firms, successful businesses, people who understand how to, generate funds, look after funds, would be able to carve out a marketing budget that was right for that business somewhere, somewhere in what they're spending. There's got to be a role for marketing because how else does it grow? So, I think this survey, what it also said was that firms are facing pressure to grow and scale, but also pressure to keep costs down. And, if I was answering this from a timeline perspective, I would be saying use timeline because that helps cut costs. It helps free up time. And some of that time could be used on marketing because even if the advisor isn't doing the marketing themselves, they still need to think about it. They still need to have a strategy, a plan. They still need to speak to an agency or commission that work or do it themselves. So, I think a financial advisor is someone who's entrepreneurial in nature, wants to do the best job for their clients.
Yeah.
Marketing is the perfect channel for them to do that because they understand what the customer wants and needs and requires. As you said, that's very important. So if you were speaking to a financial advisor now, Adebola, what's the three things you would advise them to do? As in, which three steps could they take right now to embrace and use marketing?
Start with storytelling. I am big on storytelling when it comes to marketing and communications. I just feel it wins all the time. As simple as a client once asked me this question, yada, 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 and then you make it so relatable. How can you as an advisor start to use stories without breaching confidentiality? That's where you come into. And then when you're able to share the stories in that way that is clear, that is clever, you are winning in that game. So first things first, look at storytelling and start to think about how you can actually share more so that people can see why they should trust you. Then another thing as well, I think, is find a niche. That's you saying that, hey, what does a niche look like to you as an advisor? When you are able to find it from your data, you know very well what your client base resonate most with. Your data will tell you the emails they're responding to, the conversations that lights up their eyes, the way that they converse when you pick a particular part of your business conversations. Pick that as your niche and then start to communicate on those. Doesn't mean your business needs to be niche. I'm talking about your communication. So from there, it's almost like you're reeling people in from what they love and then to what you want them to love more.
Yes.
But it all starts from the trust. So when you're able to tell stories, like that's like it's like, when we go to AA, no, I'm not going to the AA, but I know folks have been to the AA and I think it's a cool place. I would love to go to AA one day. But then I think in that space is where people build trust because they're sharing life stories and how vulnerable they can get also determines how much they can get out of those sessions. So you need as a business person as well to say, how can I tell the stories in a clever way that allows people just really trust me and whatever it is you do, third thing last, be consistent.
It's so important, isn't it? I mean, I think a niche, there's some financial advisors who might concentrate on a really niche thing like, ex-footballers or professional sports people. Equally, a niche could be a particular geographic area, couldn't it? A town, a city, a region, which probably is a lot of advisors are in that. They're focused on a particular geography, but a niche can be anything. As you say, it's about communication style, channels, what we're talking about, all of those things. There's a challenge there in terms of content. How do you make the content consistent then?
That's the consistent part. That's the tough part. And I have to agree. When it comes to marketing, for some of us, it comes very naturally. So we're ready to go. But for many others, it can look like a chore. So what I would say is use the tools, schedule. Once you're in that zone and you need to create, polish, make it so nice, make it readable, make it, connect, then schedule them. So if you use a platform like LinkedIn, for example, there is a tool, you go in there, you can schedule it to come up every Wednesday at 2 p.m. or you want to do 11 a.m. on Mondays, or you want to do Fridays, you want to do Saturdays on a subject matter that is, is the same professional bit, but you know that you want to make it really, you want to double down on how relatable it is. You can go on Saturday at 1 p.m. So it's also you using AI to help you understand what times are best for you to post and let it know what kind of post it is so that it can guide you when those particular post types have done well on the platforms. And then also if you're going to use other platforms as well, please do TikTok, Instagram. Don't feel like, oh my goodness, I'm being too loud. People are scrolling every second, nanoseconds. They're scrolling. You've gone through your content. That is done in a second. But if you're not there at all, is where you're now missing out. You know what I mean? So whatever it is I say, find a platform, be consistent on it, schedule it if you have to, find the credits into your calendar. Today I'm creating content and then I'm scheduling, and then you can go away for another 3-4 weeks, but then go back into the comments and see what people are responding to. Find your corporate army. You know what I call that? Your corporate army are 5 to 6 people, either within your organization or as a business owner, your friends, family, who every time you post, you copy the link and you share with them. They are your army. They go in there, they leave a comment, they leave an emoji, and then with that, they drag the algorithm in with them. So that way, you're being conscious of the way you're building your communication. In little time, by itself, it will bring the algorithm. But if you're just starting up, don't feel like, oh my goodness, nobody's looking at it. If you're conscious of things like that, find your army and then bring them in with you all the time.
I think everyone needs you standing by them when they're too nervous to post and hear those words, because the one of the things I think I've come across before is there's a fear of pressing the post button and writing a post. But one of the stats that's out there that floats around is that the majority of posts get actually very few likes, but it doesn't mean that people haven't seen it. They've seen it, they've scrolled past it, and that's still a win. Sometimes there's a vanity around how many likes it gets, or does it get comments, but that's not the case, is it? And equally, the organization of what I'm going to post about and time, the scheduling tool, as you said, is great because it means I can spend an hour, 2 hours putting those posts together and then just setting them to post when I want them to post, rather than having to think on the spot of what am I going to post about. And I think that's a great way to get started. I think some people, as we can see, it appears that it's just natural for them to generate content and write about things. And I think that's rather like someone when they're starting running, they get into the groove, don't they? They get into this form of being able to post regularly and frequently because it then comes more naturally to them.
Yeah.
So that's good. A question I've got, which I know is very related to this, if we're spending money on marketing, we want it to work. How would someone measure ROI on the content they're generating, and particularly social media? How would they be able to say, is that time being worth it?
I think that's an answer for the advisors themselves. And I like that you already picked on something that we've seen as a trend today on vanity metrics. And understanding exactly where people are in the world today when it comes to metrics. Why are we creating content? Are we doing it for conversation? Are we doing it for confidence? Are we doing it for feedback? Whatever it is that you're doing, you know exactly what you want to measure from there. So you need to pick what to measure, what matters to you as a business with that in that period and in that time. In the first quarter, for example, a particular metric might be important, and by the next quarter, another metric might be important. So don't get stuck on what we call the traditional metrics. Find what matters to you as a business. For example, for us, we're looking at and saying thought leadership. How many of that's for a client of ours, they're asking us to put in the metric, how many of their C-suites is being mentioned in thought leadership posts? How many C-suites are being mentioned in thought leadership posts? What then that means is that the marketing team needs to make sure that they are positioning folks within the C-suite to be in panels, to sit in panels, to create thought leadership conversations, to write a blog post, to write a paper, because that's the way you can then measure on those, because it keeps you accountable for the measurement, when you know exactly what it is that you are going to be taking out of what you're putting in. And also, if you look at it from an AI point of view, and I love this about artificial intelligence in marketing today, is that AI is being built through data. So it means that whatever it is that we get out whenever we ask a question is a lot of data coming together for whatever it is, the algorithms or the bots to pull out to give to us. So the LLMs are all built, all of this data all around. So why would you then be an organization in this age and not contribute to the data that is building your industry for the next age? So if you've got anything you've done, it's a win for you. You've won with it. Someone has written a paper before, or someone has written a post before that really did well, or your organization has done some particular things within the financial advisory sector that really resonates with so many people. Why not put it down? Share about it, because when you share, then you're contributing to that data. If somebody in another place, some weird part of the world or some very beautiful small part of the city is looking for information on financial advisory, how do you know, or how do you not think that your content might be what helps them be better at what they're doing? But if you keep your data to yourself, if you keep your win to yourself, you don't want to be braggy. Oh no, we're too bougie, we don't give information. Then it means that your data dies with you. Whereas if you put it out there, you can actually help, enable, empower, educate the next generation of financial advisors who would do so well in that field just because they read something you've done and you've done so well that it's helped them also be better at what they do.
Well, after hearing that, I've just got to ask myself, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you invest time and effort in marketing, and particularly, your own personal brand and getting it out there? So we're nearly out of time. So there's a couple of things I wanted to ask, and I think the temptation, just on that previous point, is that some financial advisors will answer the question, I just want leads. I want new business. I want leads. But they've got to understand, and we could cover this in another episode because we could talk about it forever. They've got to understand that there's different pathways to reaching the lead or the inquiry. And it's not as simple as just saying, putting an advert up, inquire with me today, I'm a financial advisor, and getting an inquiry tomorrow. It's more sophisticated than that these days, isn't it? So I've got a list here of things that I would ask, that I would like us to consider, and particularly like financial advisors here to consider. So I think it's important not to rely on a single marketing source. Would you agree or disagree?
10 points.
10 points. Okay. Then what about this? I think we've just covered this, but is it important to set an objective? What do we want from marketing?
That's it.
And that can be short term, it can be longer term, it can be both. That leads to different answers, doesn't it, in what we do? Okay, and then you talked about this at the beginning. Are we clear on who our customers are? Is there a niche in that or not? What do we need to do differently to reach some of those than others? It's about knowing your audience, as you said, Adebola, earlier. And then the balance of doing things ourselves versus external support. How do we solve that question? And we've touched on that here. If there's one piece of advice you'd give an advisor if they can't decide, what would it be? How do I do it myself, or do I get external support? What would the answer to that question be? How do they decide?
Look at it, like, how important is it to your organization? If it's very important and you don't have the time, then get someone. I think, Tom, you already said that as well. Like, the resourcing part is so important. If you know that you don't have the time, then find someone to get it done for you. There's so many ways to do that now. Freelancers are all over the place. You can use AI as well to get ahead with yourself, but whatever it is, don't just be quiet because you don't think you can do it. Find help and, just get it there.
Exactly. And then, this question of experiment and the fear of experimenting, I think, again, you said, why wouldn't you? That's probably our conclusion on this, isn't it? Have a go. Don't be afraid to experiment. What's the worst that can happen? Any concluding thoughts on that?
No, like, that's it. What's the worst that can happen? Go with it. Like, I think the worst part is not doing anything at all. Like seriously. And I like the fact that you were saying as well that don't think too much about the metrics. I love that you said that because that's a big stumbling block for a lot of people. They're just always thinking about the likes on the post and they just get discouraged. We now live in an age where the metrics has shifted. People are scrolling and let your content be out there so they can see it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm going to ask one last question, and this is possibly one of the more difficult questions for financial advisors. How much should they spend on marketing? How do they work that out? What is it as a percentage of turn? If there a figure that's a percentage of turnover, like 20% is often said, is something that should be invested in brand. But if we were a financial advisor firm now, how much should we spend on marketing? If I get someone banging on the door saying, you need to give me £25,000 and I'll do this and that and the other for you, versus I can see someone on Fiverr who can build me a website for £100. How much should I spend? What's it going to cost me? How do I figure that out?
Well, Tom, seriously, you know that we have to dedicate a whole session to this conversation because
Well, yes.
it's really big. Because we can look at it from a product marketer's point of view, who is entangled with enablement for sales. So these sales guys are able to say, this is the amount of money that we see coming out of this. The product guys come in as well and say, we built this particular product or feature, and this is the way that we're going to bring in the amount of money. So marketing can go in there and say, you're giving me 20% or you're giving me 5% or you're giving, because we can see how this ties to sales.
Yep.
On the other side of it is the brand itself. And then these are folks who just need to make sure that your brand is remembered, people understand what it is that you do as a brand, your positioning, your conversations, your look and feel, your social media, all of that. So that as well gives you another side of marketing. And then you now talk about the PR bit as well. So all of that together, for a budget, we need to look at it holistically and say, why does a particular side of marketing become important to an organization? Does my organization need all three at this point? Or they need just two, or they need just one? And then when you prioritize what you need based on where you are as a business, if you're at a business point where you're like, nobody knows who we are, then you know what part of it you're prioritizing. If you're like, people are saying things about other brands, but not saying anything about us, PR comes in, and then you know exactly where to go with that. Or you're like, we have this product, but we need people to know the features, how to use it, where to use it, how it solves for them. Then your product marketing comes in. So you start to look at your budget in a holistic, rather than just saying 20%, 5%. I don't think that that's the way I would look at it. I would look at it as a box. And then answer the questions based on why do we need this, when do we need this, and where do we plug this into?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that there's different stages, different layers of that, isn't there? What is our marketing going to look like? It starts with a strategy, then there's a plan, then you can bring down the layers, strip the layers down until you get to real detail. I think in doing that, I would answer it slightly differently, but not disagreeing with anything you said, in that I think one of the things that is important is to step back and say, what is our strategy, and find some way of writing that says, this is what the business wants to achieve. An advisor could write that themselves. They could get a consultant to write it, or they could ask an agency to do it, or even a freelancer. That's really the thought process of saying, what do we want? What do we need the business to achieve, and where marketing fits into that? Then from that point, a plan and a budget can be set, can't it? Around, if we invest this much money, this is what we're expecting from it. Again, we could do a full episode on this, but one of the things I've found useful, particularly in where I've had, bigger budgets within marketing, is whenever we plan a new activity and we're doing a series of activities already, to assume that new activity is going to give us no business. It's just going to be a cost. It's going to have no return. So you would plan out a no return outcome, a reasonable outcome, and then a best case outcome. So if that activity fails, it's not going to fail in a bigger way. It's contained within a bracket. So there are tips and things like this that we could talk for forever. We should definitely do an episode on budget and and return on investment. So I think we're out of time now. So what if you're going to say one thing just to sum up, what would it be, Adebola, on this?
One thing I'll say is just do it. Whatever it is that you've been planning and thinking about marketing, today is that day. Like this is an episode you had to see to get you to say, I'm just going to do it. So just do it.
Excellent. Well, I think we've wrapped that up really well.
No. How about you, Tom? What are you going to say? What's your final word?
Well, I was leaving that to you. I haven't thought of one yet, but I would say it's important, you know, whatever the size of the budget is, whether it's £1, £10 million, it's always important to make every pound count. So, you know, that's something I've found has been a useful thought process, and getting more from less, you know. So whatever the budget, don't be afraid. Just do it, work out what you can do with that, experiment, start, because if you don't start, you'll never know. So just do it is something that I think is a really good phrase to take away from this. And what we know is every advisor is confident about the advice they give. There's some great advisors out there. What we want is that advisors reach their clients, because there are loads of people who can't or don't or haven't accessed financial advice, and it would be a life changer for them. So what we don't want is for financial advisors not doing marketing. Just do it is the thing that this episode should leave in people's heads, definitely. And I think that's it. Do we want to look ahead to the next episode? What's coming up?
What's coming up? Tell me. Next episode, I think we should talk about, like, seriously, I really think we should talk about budgeting. Like, let's do it. Like, I'll be happy to come with all the questions. You've worked in this space for quite a while, so great to see how we can look at taking this to the next level and seeing how we can actually help people break this up from a budget point of view. And then after that, we can then talk about how you can then go on and get those customers that really need your service, especially the ones that have your budget.
Fantastic. Well, looking forward to it. Great to catch up again. Looking forward to next time.
See you.
Bye.